So specifically for Smoky Mountains National Park, that drive sounds beautiful. So I definitely think people should check that out. But as far as like, is there any specific hikes or like specific sites or like points of interest within Smoky Mountain National Park that people should make sure to check out if they're there?
Yeah, absolutely. So that drive is called Blue Ridge Parkway. And then my favorite hike in the park is Mount Lakan. It's a pretty long hike. It's like 10 miles, but it goes by a lone cave, which is really cool. And you just like walk up this mountain, and there are just like beautiful waterfalls and streams along the way. And the view at the top is just amazing. And there's actually a little like lodge area at the top that you can hike up to. You can only get there by hiking, and you can stay there. I've never stayed there, but it would be really, really cool to stay up there. I don't remember what it's called, but it's the only lodge in the park, so it's pretty easy to find. So that's by far my favorite hike. But for things like a little bit milder, Laurel Falls is a really easy hike. It's like 2 miles, and it's a gorgeous waterfall. And that's like right off the road. It's pretty easy to find if you have a map. Always get a map also. That's another tip for the parks. It's easier to find your way that way. And then there's a few others that I really like. Chimney Tops is a pretty hard hike, but it's only 4 miles, so it's pretty quick. That has a really nice view of the mountains. And then another really cool waterfall is Rainbow Falls, which is actually the first hike I did there. And it's just like a really tall waterfall. If you're there in the winter, Cliffman's Dome won't be open, but it is open in the summer. And you can drive right up to it, and it's like the highest point in the park. It's like an observation area. I've actually never been there, surprisingly, but I heard it's like one of the best spots in the park. It's just really busy, and I try to stay away from the crowds. So I've done a lot of hikes around that area, but I haven't actually hiked to that area.
Yeah. So that's a really good point you bring up with it being like winter versus summer. Have you been there in the winter, or would you say that this would be an okay, because it's a little farther south, right, being in Tennessee, would this be an okay park, although they'd miss that one hike, would this be an okay park for somebody that wants to go there in the winter or do like a winter trip there?
Yeah, absolutely. The first time I ever went there was early March, and it was still very much winter there. Like it wasn't as green in the trees, like there were still the pines and everything. But there's like nobody there in the winter, and you have a lot of the park to yourself, and you don't have to worry about bears as much. You still have to be, bear aware, but not nearly as much as in the spring or in the summer. And I always encourage people to go to parks in the off season because there are way less people there, and you just have way more options of things to do, and it's still just as beautiful in the winter as it is in the summer.
Yeah. Cool. I love that. And then another question I had, so for that 10-mile hike that you brought up, what was that one called again?
Mount LeConte.
Mount Lakan. Okay. So for somebody that wants to do that one, is that a pretty challenging hike? And then if you were going to do that 10-mile hike, would you like backpack in and camp, or is it like a loop of 10 miles? So 10 miles total till back to your car type of thing?
Yeah. So that is an out and back hike. So it's not a loop. So you go down the trail and back the same way. If you stay in the lodge, you have to like backpack your stuff out there. But I don't actually believe there's backcountry camping on that particular hike. In terms of the challenge, it's hard to really say because everybody's skill level is different. But in terms of like comparing it to the West Coast, it's not challenging at all because it's a very gradual hike. And that's one of my favorite things about the Smoky Mountains is all the hikes are very gradual and they kind of like wrap around the mountain rather than going like straight up the mountain. So I would say it's challenging, but you can go slow and take your time, and there's water refills at the top. So if you bring like a water pack, you can refill it. So it's a pretty, I would say, moderate level.